Well, here's our reaction to the Super Rugby Final of 2017 that's just happened. The Crusaders win it by 25 points to 17. The Sunday Roasters now with myself, Jake O'Flaherty, and Bradley Richardson. Here's the intro, and on the other side, I'll see you. Ladies and gentlemen, today's special edition reaction to the Super Rugby Final is recorded in front of a live audience. So if you hear any noises or otherwise sounds, you know, that's what it is. It's this big audience around us. So look, Bradley, we've just come off the Super Rugby Final. Your initial thoughts on it?
Yeah, well, I'd just like to bring you back a bit. We've actually built a grandstand in the form of a couch. So if you hear one person laughing, don't be surprised because we are quite funny. But to get to your actual question, as you said, hell of a final. At one point it looked like the Crusaders were going to pull out, but that didn't happen. Lions, they made a comeback, so you know it made things exciting, and it's the final that we needed, almost. Yeah, well, 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes I was thinking, my God, the Crusaders are in for something special if they don't turn it around. But opportunistic try by Seta Tamani Valu, ball in his hands, and well, he got a bit of space, and that's all he needed. Yeah, it seems to happen a lot though. Just popped up from the ruck inside their own 22, ran about 90 odd metres, scored at the other end. He'll be counting his chickens, and he'll be putting some bets on tonight because that was one of the luckiest tries, probably one of the easiest tries you'll ever score in professional rugby. Yeah, I agree. Just all he needed to do is put his toe down, and he was kind of like a chicken being chased by Colonel Sanders. That movie Chicken Run, have you seen that? No, I haven't, but I'll imagine that doesn't surprise me. You don't seem like that sort of guy, but I have it on VHS if you're still rocking a video player. Okay, well, maybe we can take you up on that offer some other time. But Jack Goodhue, not long after that, scores a try to bring it to 12 points to 0, and that was a very big moment as well. A lot of sustained pressure, sustained attack, and that's something we really saw throughout the whole game, but specifically with that try, it was a really important moment. Yeah, well, it took the Crusaders really a long time to get into the match and start building their phases, but once they did that, their attack looked ominous, and that came with points, and really the Lions, they struggled to shut that out for the first half. Elton Jantjies then got a penalty, so it was 12-3, and then after that, well, actually, I should say before the Crusaders were able to get 3 points after that, well, it came from probably the most defining moment of the match, the red card. And look, that was a huge moment in the match. Quokka Smith sent from the field from an early shower, I should say, and a very justified red card. Well, I think there are really two elements that go into it. You got the element of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. He pulled out of going for the ball, so he just kept running. Of course, the rising David Hub, who was it? Yep, thank you. I know my players clearly. Jumped up, got hell of a height on him, managed to clip his legs, flipped over, did a somersault, of course hit one of his own Crusaders players, which I think in the end stopped him from it being worse than what it actually was. But in the end, you got to put the onus on the player. He put himself into that situation. It's his job to keep the other player safe, which he didn't do, and that resulted in the red card. Yeah, Quokka Smith, the words used by referee Yarko Piper, you were never in a realistic position to catch the ball, and that was what it all was. And look, you know, it's a freakish moment. You know, obviously not intentional, and you know, there was no malice in that. But unfortunately, the player safety of the man in the ear, he needs to be looked after. Yeah, Quokka Smith was not happy with himself after that. Of course, didn't miss the bench completely, walked straight down the tunnel. You just imagine how he was feeling getting a red card in a Super Rugby Final. Yeah, absolutely massive moment in the match. Richie Mo'unga knocks one over from a relatively hard position after that, so it was 15 points to 3 at halftime. Yeah, that's, you know, you'd want it a bit closer if you're a Lions fan, but still, we thought we still had something to play for in the second half. But we got underway, and of course, Kieran Reid, first 2 minutes, try under the black dot, and I was very scared that we were going to see something like what the Bulls versus the Chiefs final was way back in 2007, which was an absolute blowout. I was really hoping that what happened did happen, you know, or would happen, I should say, because, you know, the Crusaders, they were looking very dangerous. Yeah, I've used the word ominous a lot today. I'm going to use it one more time. I'll try and keep it kept it on the down low afterwards. The second half looked ominous. The Crusaders came out firing. They were just relentless in attack. They scored points. They scored good points, and the Lions didn't really look like they could stop them.
Yes, of course, our studio audience is loving it. Smiles all around. So if we crack a bit of a crazy smile, well, you know who's looking at us. That was the last try for the Crusaders. They scored a penalty after that, and that was the end of their scoring for the night, because Malcolm Marks scored a brilliant try after that at 64 minutes, just in time to give them a shot at trying to come back from the deficit.
Yeah, that penalty, it really was a game changer. There's a few in the match, a few times when someone flipped the coin, landed on the different side, so things sort of switched around. Maybe it was God, maybe it was just the way the wind was blowing, could have been a bit iffy. That penalty, when the Lions started coming back into the match. They got their rhythm again. They got their potency that they had through the rest of the season, but in the end they just couldn't quite get there.
Corner Footy scored the try. I said it was someone else who scored the try. My mistake. Don't hold me against it during the commentary. But Corny Footy scores a try after that. 71 minutes. So, look, it was then 17 versus 25. We really were in for a good last 9 minutes, weren't we?
You could tell it through the faces of the crowd. Everyone perked up a little bit. So did the studio audience. He's nodding his head in agreement. I'm saying something right, so that must be a good onus on me.
Well, you know, look, I say the red card was the defining moment of the match. Possibly the defining moment of the competition was Rohan Janssen van Rensburg's lost forward right near the line. Look, if he had held on to the pill, maybe we would have been looking at possibly a whole different ending to this match. Certainly a different score, but certainly maybe a different winner as well. Yeah,
that moment... I'm not going to use the word. I'm thinking it, but I'm not going to use it. It was a moment where everyone's heart was in their chest. The Lions, Crusaders fans knew if the Lions scored, it could have gone either way. But if the Crusaders managed to hold them out one more time, that really put another dent in the confidence of the Lions, and it would have been really hard to score from there mentally.
You said everyone's heart was in their chest. I agree with that. That actually probably most people's hearts are in their chest. I think you tried to say heart was in your mouth.
Maybe in your hands.
Maybe in your hands.
They just took it out and reached down.
No, but I think everyone's heart was in their chest. We move on.
I'd hope so.
I'm not into all that sort of jazz. I don't know many about that. But look, we talk about Johan Janssen van Rensburg's missed opportunity, but the amount of times that the Lions had opportunities gone begging was just frustrating to watch.
They just couldn't seem to finish today when the moment really counted.
I counted 3 lineouts within 10 metres in the last sort of 20 minutes that was thrown in. Either the Crusaders had won the lineout or it had been overthrown or something. Look, you know, you can't throw it all down to Malcolm Marks, excuse the pun, because he's the hooker throwing the ball in. But look, you know, I think it's just a testament to the Crusaders to be able to put enough pressure on the Lions throughout the whole game to inevitably just force mistakes like that.
Yeah, well, you had 2 players in that Crusaders line-out who are absolute workhorses. The caveman Sam Whitelock and Kieran Reid. They just seem to be in the space of the ball every single line-out. They made it difficult for the Lions. The Lions had to try a couple tricky things towards the end. They didn't come off, and the onus has got to go on them for making it difficult, and that led to other things and scrappy ball for the Lions.
Crusaders' defence, look, that was absolutely outstanding to keep it like it was. Obviously, only the 2 tries in the last 16 minutes, 2 tries conceded. So, look, that's a hell of a showing for the Crusaders, but you know, they did it last week as well to be able to only concede a consolation try by Brody Retallick in the last sort of 2 minutes or so. So, you know, look, Crusaders over this whole and you cast it back to the win against the Highlanders in the quarterfinal. The Crusaders have been the form team of the playoffs, haven't they?
Yeah, well, they've built upon those last 2 semi-finals. They've brought what they did well in those games, mixed it what they've done well throughout the whole season, put it into one, and that was your final.
Well, it was exactly what happened last year with the Hurricanes. They dominated the Chiefs in their semi-final, dominated the quarter-final, and obviously the final they won as well against the Lions. So that's 2 losses in a row for the Lions in a Super Rugby final. That's hard to take for a Lions fan, I can imagine. But 2008 was the last time the Crusaders won a title. This is their 8th title, but it seems like it's their 1,000th. 2008 was a long time ago. 9 years without a Super Rugby title. So, that's a homecoming. That's pretty special for a Crusaders fan.
Yeah, 12 times Crusaders have been in the finals, won 8 of them. So, that's about a... Let me do some math. You cover while I do some math.
Well, I don't really...
66%. That's why I'm a maths champion. 66% win rate in their finals. I think any team would be stoked with that.
Look, 25 points to 17. The Crusaders win it by 8 points in the Super Rugby Final. That's our reaction. Look, Bradley, your final thoughts on that final. It was a very, very fitting end to a great Super Rugby campaign from all teams.
Yeah, well, setting my alarm for 1 a.m. at 11 o'clock. I wasn't too excited for how this match was going to go. You'd hope for a good match. That's what we got for a 2 a.m. wake up. Nick's yawning in the background. He's about to fall asleep. I think that's a sign of the night we've had. It's been long. It's been exciting. And I think we've really come out of this with Super Rugby looking promising in some aspects for next year.
Yeah, well, the time right now recording this is 25 minutes past 4 in the morning. So, excuse us if we slur some words or whatnot. But we move on to the whole Super Rugby competition as a whole. Just quickly, Bradley, your thoughts on that as we look into the future of Super Rugby? Of course, 3 teams leaving the competition. How is this going to work? We go back to the Super 15. We go back to what it was before those extra teams added. How does Super Rugby stack up amongst the competitions around the world?
Yeah, well, it's no secret that Super Rugby has had its problems. Hopefully they find a way to scrap this conference system or do it differently, where every team plays each other. We end up with fair finalists. The teams that deserve to be in the finals make it to the finals. I think that'll really help to lift the game up again in popularity, because it's been waning this year.
Yeah, a logistical nightmare maybe for some, but look, let's be honest, I think it would probably be a step forward for fairness and equality amongst the teams and equality of opportunity for all the teams in a competition like this. Of course, the New Zealand teams dominated Super Rugby this year, and it was pretty sad to see, to be honest. As a New Zealand fan, it was sad to see the competition lacking amongst those other countries. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, Australia in particular, they were oh so good in those early 2000s. It's just gone downhill. Too many sports competing there. Rugby's got to find a way to beat them and to lift back up its popularity, because Australia needs to be strong for World Rugby to be strong.
And of course, the Rugby Championship, Argentina and Australia, South Africa, they're going up against the All Blacks, obviously coming off I'd say probably an unsuccessful British and Irish Lions campaign. But look, those 3 teams versus an All Black team after a Super Rugby competition, do you have anything to talk about with that?
I think it's going to be a hell of a rugby championship. I think Argentina is going to be a bit of a dark horse in it. Of course, the All Blacks, everyone knows the All Blacks probably going to win it. Australia not looking too strong. South Africa probably equal with Argentina, I'd have to say. Argentina getting some good results in those earlier games in the year. So did South Africa dicking the shit out of France. So it's going to be interesting to see how things play out.
Look, the whole thing of Southern Hemisphere rugby, it's a whole talking point on its own, but we bring it back to the Super Rugby Final. Ladies and gentlemen, it is it for Super Rugby in 2017. And I want to look down instead of looking at the camera, because it'd be very embarrassing to get the score wrong. The Lions go down at their home of Ellis Park in front of 61,500 by 17 points to 25. Congratulations to the Crusaders, their 8th win and their first one since 2008.